Marvel acts like they're the best in the industry. They create the best superhero films. They make sure behind the scenes and on screen they've got the most diverse, inclusive casts, and they always think that they're gonna make the best films to release every single year, but apparently, people aren't buying Marvel's BS when it comes to Black Widow because the movie's drop at the box office has been the worst for an MCU movie, and the reviews for the film haven't all been super positive. A lot of people did like this film. I'm not trying to say, oh, it's the worst Marvel film to release, but it definitely has been a disappointment for a lot of people. So I want to read this Forbes article, and then I want to move into some of the Metacritic reviews for the film. But really quickly, before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And if you really do enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So it says Black Widow got slammed by Space Jam: A New Legacy on Friday night, taking a brutal 79.7% drop from its 39.5 million opening day. The Scarlett Johansson starring prequel earned $8 million yesterday, bringing its 8-day total to $113 million, and that drop is about on par with the 81% tumble of Batman vs. Superman and the 83% drop for Dark Phoenix, and it's by far the worst Friday to Friday drop for an MCU flick. Now, no matter what these films are gonna make money, we're talking about Marvel here, they've got a giant fan base and they could release bottom of the barrel content and people would still open their wallets for them. But it's also inevitable that numbers are gonna drop. Average people only go to the theaters once to see a film, so the longer it's in theaters, clearly the number of tickets sold is gonna drop, but these numbers are after only a week of the film being in theaters. Yes, it was released on Disney Plus as well, so a lot of people are going to watch it that way, but there's still clearly a ton of people going to theaters instead of watching movies online. Now, scrolling down, it says it'll likely earn around $24 million for the weekend, down 69% from its $80 million launch. Again, that's worse than the 62% drops on this same weekend in 2017 and 2018 of Spider-Man: Homecoming after a $117 million debut, and the Ant-Man and the Wasp after a $76 million debut. That, for now, is a 70% drop that would be ahead of only Jonah Hex, Hulk, Hellboy 2, Dark Phoenix, and Steel among all the big deal comic book movies. That's the bad news, as you can argue that the Disney Plus Premier Access availability ate into the theatrical revenue, and yes, the film had decent weekday grosses and holds, so this could be another scenario where much of the post-debut demand gets filled not on weekend 2, but the first batch of the Monday to Thursday weekdays. Now, I talked about this in my previous video, but the director for Black Widow literally said they decided not to add any male Avengers to the film like Tony Stark because they didn't need Natasha to have men running around trying to help her and saving the day. And I do genuinely think the bad press around this movie hasn't helped because, yeah, there are people who want to see strong women and everything, but more people who just want to watch a good movie. Scarlett Johansson for months has been saying this movie references the Me Too movement and it's about women empowerment, and while there are people who constantly want to see stuff like that, there are more people, I'd say, who just want to see a good superhero film. It's really unfortunate that this is the way that Marvel's going because I'm one of the people who would usually go and see a superhero film in theaters, and I decided not to see Black Widow, just like I decided not to see a lot of the Phase 3 movies. I want Marvel to be good, and unfortunately, they're just not creating amazing stories right now. A lot of the story writing's really bad. They're more worried about pushing narratives than telling us a good story. But I wanted to head over to the Metacritic scores because the critic scores and also the user scores are pretty mediocre right now, sitting at a 67 and a 6.5. Now, heading on over to the user scores, there are just a lot of people who were really not happy with the film, who said, yeah, it had a good basis, it had okay characters in it, but the story, the way that it played out, just wasn't amazing. Somebody said something like, just when I thought Captain Marvel was the worst in the MCU, this movie's existence is absolutely pointless to pushing the universe forward. It goes back to the events following Captain America's Civil War and seems to be utterly useless when all is said and done. Somebody said this movie was shaping up to be fairly decent, if not a little bland. Scarlet is as good as ever, but the whole family dynamic is kinda stupid, and the Red Guardian is played as an absolute joke, despite being an extremely powerful super soldier. It is unfortunate that they decided to go in this direction. I do think that the film had something going for it. I wouldn't give it a 1 out of 10, but I also wouldn't give it like an 8 out of 10. I just feel like at its base, at its core, it was a generic spy movie, and then they tried to add in little touches that kind of felt Marvel, and it just didn't really feel like a super exciting Marvel film. Somebody said, a very women-oriented movie. I don't necessarily think that that's bad, it just has to be written in a proper way. They said the script is too weak, no logic in character behaviors, too long senseless dialogues. Somebody gave it a 0. Lots of like 0s, 1s, and 2s here, and then we kind of get into the 4s, 5s, and 6s. Somebody said it's cliche, it's cringy, 2000s Charlie's Angels level of dumb. The worst Marvel movie in the MCU by a mile with very few redeeming moments, skip it. A user rated it a 5, decent action pieces but ultimately let down by poor writing. The plot is Scooby-Doo levels of stupid and the villain never seems like a challenge. With the exception of the younger sister, the supporting characters are unlikable and the jokes repeatedly fall flat. And I do mean repeatedly. There is one joke that is repeated 3 times throughout the whole freaking movie. You can make a film about strong, independent women, but also provide an amazing story to go along with it. Women don't have to be the focus of the film. Oh, look, guys, we made a movie about women. Congratulations, Marvel. Everyone, let's give up a round of applause for them. I mean, they think that just putting a bunch of women in a film is gonna sell. That, to me, isn't a selling point. I want to see a good story, good cast, amazing acting. I want to see a bunch of different aspects going along with the fact that it's a women-led cast. I don't know why they thought that this would work. It says, meh, it's not horrendous by any means. More of a shame they squandered a good opportunity with a popular character. A lot of people were really excited to see a Black Widow film, but it just wasn't great. I think that it was a couple of years too late. I feel like they should have made a movie for her before she was actually dead in the MCU. But they made the decision to wait many, many years. Too many years, in my opinion, and we just have to deal with the timing. It was okay. It wasn't amazing. There was just a lot of worrying marketing when it came to this film. Scarlett Johansson was talking a lot about this film referencing the Me Too movement and having strong women. We heard about the director saying, we didn't add any male Avengers to this film because we felt like she didn't need any men to help her. And ultimately, I think there are just a lot of reasons why this film is a flop for me and a lot of other people. And as you can tell by the user scores, a lot of people just really weren't that impressed by it. But that's all that I really had to talk about in this video. Maybe the numbers will recover for Black Widow in the coming weeks, or maybe Marvel's newest film will just fall flat. If you enjoyed this video though, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.